Hello, how are you? It's a lovely sunny day here in London, though it's quite chilly. The other evening, I had my first cup of hot chocolate of the season, which was lovely. So recently, the Prime Minister made an announcement that here in England, we'll probably have at least 6 more months of working from home. So I want to make sure I have plenty of books to read during that time. I mean, there's never any risk that I'm realistically ever going to run out of books to read, but I have a huge pile of really exciting new books that have just been published in September in the UK that sound really good. So I'm going to talk through all of these. First off, I have to mention this new book, Pages & Co., Tilly and the Map of Stories. Yes, so those of you who are fans of my videos that I make with my wonderful friend Anna James, this is the third book in her series. Yes, Anna has written a trilogy now, and she's basically Hilary Mantel. It's and she hasn't won a Booker Prize yet, but one day it's probably gonna happen. So this is her series of middle grade books. Suggested reading ages, I think, from ages 8 to 12 or 13. I have a number of friends who have really got into this series of books, who have children who have really got into this series of books, although lots of adults enjoy reading this series as well, because it's all about a passion for reading and a passion for books, which Anna, of course, excels at talking about. And in this adventure, Tilly journeys to America, my home country, so that's very exciting. Next, I have the novel Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. And so I was a massive fan of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell when that came out many years ago. And this is a much shorter book. It's just under 250 pages long. It's about a man who lives in a grand house, and perhaps he has always lived there, and he spends his days cataloging in notebooks all of the contents of that house. There's many statues and wonders in this house, and he has a strange friend who comes to visit him periodically, but mostly he lives alone. And then one day, strange messages start appearing, and then a mystery starts to unfold. And I just love the premise of this novel and the sound of it. And of course, I love her writing already, and I've heard really great things about this. The writer David Mitchell says that this is an exquisite puzzle box, far, far bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And speaking of the inside, you can look on the inside pages. There's seashells and snowflakes and seahorses. I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but yeah, the inside is really beautiful. Next, I have an anthology, which is a group of short stories from the BBC National Short Story Award for this year. This is the 15th year that the Short Story Award has been taking place. And I think the winner is going to be announced next month, but you can read all of the shortlisted short stories here. And I think it's really interesting to follow, because a number of the writers that have been shortlisted for this award are ones that I've been wanting to read, but I've not read any of their work yet. So I think it'll be an interesting way to sort of dip in and see if I gel with their styles or not and want to read their longer books. So there's authors like Jan Carson and Sarah Hall. Actually, I have read a book by Sarah Hall before, The Electric Michelangelo, and Ellie Williams. And then there's a couple authors, Caleb Asma Nelson and Jack Houston, who I've not heard of before. So I'm not sure if they have published books as well, or if this is their first published work. But yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to sort of dip into this and read these short stories and then find out who the winner is. The Madness by Narcis Oller. This is translated from the Catalan by Douglas Suttles. So this is a literary novel which tries to analyze the social and genetic causes which result in mental illness by looking at the story of a young Spanish revolutionary in the time before the Spanish Civil War. Farewell Ghosts by Nadia Terranova, and this is translated from the Italian by Anne Goldstein, who also translates Elena Ferrante's novels. So this is about a woman in her late 30s who's moved to Rome from Sicily to make a new life for herself. And one day her mother tells her that she's going to sell their family home and she needs to clear out all of her things. And as she's sorting through all these things, it makes her think about the past in her life and her traumatic experiences with her father leaving and her difficult relationship with her mother. So it's sort of that examination of family life. And I think it sounds so good. It has a blurb at the top by Annie Ernaux, the great French writer who I absolutely love, who says that Nadia Terranova's narrative style captivates us with its precision and sensitivity. And also, I happened to see on Twitter, the author Jonathan Coe wrote a tweet that was endorsing this novel and saying if you want to read great modern Italian writing outside of Elena Ferrante's work, that you should look at this author. New Passengers by Tine Hoeg, and this is translated from the Danish by Misha Hoekstra. So this is about a young woman who's starting her first day as a teacher, and while she's on her commuter train, she meets a married man that she eventually starts having an affair with. So it's about the life of our sort of daily commute, but also people who are making this uneasy translation into adulthood. I think it describes how it's for people who are flailing through adulthood like a fish out of water, and I just love that description. And speaking of commuting, I have another novel which begins as a story about early morning commuting, which is Where the Edge Is by Grainne Murphy. And this novel is set in a small town in rural Ireland where an early morning bus falls into a road that subsides. And so this bus is trapped in this deep hole and all the passengers are trapped in it as well. And so it's about the drama of trying to rescue these passengers from this bus and all of the people surrounding this rescue mission. The River Within by Karen Powell. This is set in the summer of 1955 in a small village in North Yorkshire, and it's about a group of people who discover the body of their childhood friend in a river, and it's about the whole mystery behind that of whether he jumped in or if he was pushed in, and it's sort of described as this is a kind of Hamlet-esque type tale, which really intrigues me. Next, I have a group of books from Penguin's newly launched Great Ideas series. So they kindly sent me a selection of all of these, and these are very short books, which are kind of classic texts, which are talking about larger ideas. And I really like the idea of this Ideas series because there's all these like great writers that I feel like I see referenced, and I have a rough idea of their sort of philosophies or ideas, but I've not often read the original source material of them, so I think this is a good way of sort of dipping into them. So there's the first book I have is How to Be a Stoic, which is a group of Roman philosophers discussing this idea of Stoicism. I have The Power of Words by Simone Weil. I also like how on the covers of these books they include short quotes from these authors or series of authors, and just as a way of sort of dipping into them. I also have a book by Martin Luther King Jr., by a book by Audre Lorde, When I Dare to Be Powerful, The Freedom to Be Free by Hannah Arendt, and also Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman? Sorry, there's a siren and police car going on outside. So I think this just like a great way to sort of dip into these famous authors that I've never read before. The Boiled in Between by Helen Marten, and this is the debut novel from a Turner Prize winning artist. And so I think it's really interesting when artists try to make the transition into literary works of fiction, and this sounds like a very literary work of fiction. So I'm not really sure how it's gonna go, which way it's gonna go. It's a novel told in 3 different voices, but beyond that, I find it very difficult to understand what the plot is actually about. There's this very cryptic description, which is, we are the messers, the instruments of psychic observation. We are not the moral function of behavior, neither analyst nor pulse. We are spectator, servant, and clown. We are animal, vegetable, mineral. Our flight takes us everywhere. We are interested. We see broken men and women and cast the spaces in between. We found these two, Ethan and Patrice, and bedded down to watch them squeal. So that's very intriguing, but I'm not really sure what it's about, but I think it'll be interesting to dip in and try. Then I have a couple new translated books by a relatively new publisher called V&Q Books, which translate books from German into English. The first is a nonfiction book called Journey Through a Tragicomic Century, The Absurd Life of Hasso Grabner, and it's by Francis Nenik and translated by Katie Derbyshire. And so it's about a nearly forgotten author called Hasso Grabner, who was a communist resistance fighter and concentration camp survivor in the first half of the 20th century. And it's described as a literary portrait of a 20th century Don Quixote. And I think that sounds so intriguing. Then there is the novel Daughters by Lucy Fricke, translated by Sinead Crow. And this is the story of two women who are on a road trip with a terminally ill father in the back seat. And it's about the drama of that journey through Germany and Switzerland and Italy and Greece as they're sort of traveling, but also traveling into their past and looking at their memories and their past experiences. So yeah, very intriguing. And I'm especially interested to read this because I myself made a very similar road trip recently through these same countries of Germany and Switzerland and Italy. So it'll be really interesting to read the geographical descriptions of the areas that they're traveling through. And then sort of staying in the same geographical region, I have the novel Equilibrium by Tonino Guerra, which is about a man who was once interred in a concentration camp, and he's obviously very haunted by this experience. And so it's about his post-traumatic experience of this and trying to deal with growing madness. And he's a designer, and he travels to Italy where he decorates the rooms with various shapes and is trying to sort of sort through all of these feelings that he has. The writer Samantha Morton describes it as a trip worthy of Hunter S. Thompson or Charlie Kaufman. Obviously filmic and surreal, but succinct and clear like fresh water. Next is a book of fiction which sounds like much more kind of escapist literature than these past few books I've been talking about. So this is called Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and it's translated from the Japanese by Jeffrey Trosselot. So this is a novel about a small cafe in a back alley in Tokyo where the coffee they serve offers its customers the chance to travel back in time. So it's about a number of different customers and their experiences traveling back in time, a kind of more fantastical type tale, which just sounds quite fun. Then there is The Memory of Babel by Christelle Dabos. This is the third book in a very popular French YA fantasy series, which I know a lot of adults enjoy reading this as well, and I've been really wanting to read it. So this is about a mere traveling heroine who goes to distant worlds, and yeah, I've just been really wanting to get into this series, and I feel quite guilty. I've still not read the first two books in the series. Oh, this is sort of bleached out. I don't know if you can see them, but yeah, I've been really wanting to just sort of dive in to this fantasy series, which is kind of sci-fi as well. And I've been really into some recent sci-fi books. So yeah, I'm hoping over the autumn or winter I might just get into this and then read all three books in a row. And then finally, Grainne Books sent me a finished copy of Sayaka Murata's new novel Earthlings, which I read very early this year because Grainne Books got in touch with me and a group of other booktubers and who were fans of Convenience Store Woman and asked us if we wanted to read a very early copy of her new novel and then film our instant reactions to finishing the end of this book, because it has a very shocking and startling ending, and so we all did that, and they compiled it together into a very fun video. I'll put a link to it below if I can find a link to that video, because yeah, it was really fun to see everyone's reaction to it, and I couldn't help just my absolute shock finishing this book. It's the story of a woman and her childhood friend. When they're young, they sort of believe that they're from outer space, that they're actually aliens, and then it goes into their adulthood and how they sort of still believe this, and the consequences of that. And yeah, the ending is just so surprising. I'll be so excited to see other people reading this book and discussing it, because I think it's going to really divide a lot of people's opinions. I mean, I didn't love it quite as much as some of the other booktubers loved it. I still have very mixed feelings about it, but I think it's absolutely fascinating, and it builds along a lot of the same themes as Convenience Store Woman, about sort of loneliness and feeling alienated from other people in society. And I think the ending of this can be interpreted in so many different ways that, yeah, it's really interesting. And also, it's very exciting, this copy in the text of the author's name and the title of the novel, it glows in the dark. So obviously I can't close the curtain now and show that. So I'll put up a picture showing how it glows in the dark, which I think is quite cool and a really fun gimmick to go along with the theme of this novel. So those are all the books that I'm going to talk about. Let me know if you've read any of these or you're interested in reading any of them in the comments below, and we can have a chat about them, or let me know what other new books you've gotten recently to get through this probably extended time of, I mean, it's not lockdown, but it's more time at home of having to work from home and trying to socialize as little as possible in the home. So yeah, I need lots of books to keep us company. But hope you're doing well and reading good things. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, everyone.